And we're live.
Whoopoo!
Woohoo.
Whoopoo!
Whoopoo.
Whatever that was.
I had a thought earlier while I was making our sign, to be or not to be.
Yeah.
And I almost said it, and I'm like, I'll save it till we're recording.
Okay.
I really like the word Q.
Q, like the Taylor Swift Q?
Yes, like waiting in a line queue.
Yeah.
Because it is 5 letters long. It only needs to be one. Q. The letter Q. It's spelled Q-U-E. Wait, Q-U-E-U-E. Q-E-U-E. It's got a lot of
U.
extra letters.
It's
Q-U-E.
U-E.
U-E.
I don't fucking know.
It's got a lot of extra. It's my favorite word. I don't know how to spell it.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of extra letters in it. And all it needs is the one. Just the Q.
There's a lot of words like that, though.
Like what?
B. There's just one extra word. Or one extra, there's a whole extra word in the letter.
Well, is
in
it
the word
B
B.
or B? Like, bzz. Then there's 2 extra letters.
B. Could just be the letter B.
To be.
To be.
Or not to be.
To be.
What is, isn't B movie?
I've never seen the B movie.
I have seen it. I don't remember anything about the movie except for what I've seen in memes online, but I have seen the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. So let's talk about Hitler.
Oh, I was like, at first I was like, wait, what was the thought? I was like, oh, it was the
Q.
the Q.
Yeah. I'm glad I saved it.
Yeah.
Riveting content. Let's talk about Hitler. And
Y'all, this is a This is like embarrassing. Without going into extreme detail, long story short, Kanye has went on to Alex Jones's show InfoWars and professed his deep love for Adolf Hitler. And it is just, besides it being clearly horrible, right? I mean, it's horrible, it's wrong. We don't like, that's just common sense, so we don't need to really sit here and talk about why it's wrong, like it just is.
why Hitler's bad.
Yeah. The thing that is just like, whoa, is Alex Jones the whole time looks so scared, so uncomfortable.
And he's actually trying to backpedal and tell Kanye, oh, I think what you mean is this. And people are, I don't think it's fair to call you a Nazi. And then bitch says, I love Hitler. Like, what?
He said he loved Hitler like that. And then he said, I love Nazis. And I said, oh, this is one of those things that you just assumed somebody misquoted. And then they didn't.
It's very startling when you're like, oh, okay, Kanye said some like wild shit about Nazis and Hitler and whatever.
Mm.
It's different when you read the quote versus when you pulled up like the clips from the interview.
Yeah.
Your mouth literally jaw dropped open because you were like, what? Oh, I can't believe
it was.
He's saying these things. It's very shocking when you actually hear him say it.
Yeah, because you're just kind of like hearing the inflection of his voice and his tone, and
part of you wants to be like, he's trolling, right?
Almost the like adoration he had. I was just, I mean, you went off the fucking deep end if Alex fucking Jones is trying to go, whoa, are
that's
you
a
sure?
Little much. Are you sure you want to be saying that? Like, that's a little far.
Like when Alex Jones thinks you've went too far, you've went beyond too far. Like if you can make Alex Jones look like the sanest person in the room, there's a fucking problem.
Yeah, I think it's really I was thinking about this earlier too, about at what point do you stop making excuses, for somebody saying this shit? Because, and I know that like mental illness, it's a whole other sort of conversation. I get that. I'm not sympathetic, regarding those things.
Yeah.
But mental illness is still not an excuse.
No.
And I'm sure some people will say it's not being used as an excuse. It actually affects how you say and do things and operate and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't care.
But there's like a clear right and a clear wrong. And when you just keep hitting the clear wrong, at some point you're choosing to keep hitting the clear wrong.
Yeah.
So
I think that at this point, I didn't really much care for Kanye to begin with. I mean, has he made some like decent music? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There's no denying that, but the antics and the doing anything for publicity or to get the conversation going or whatever it is, it's gross to me.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm like, I'm not his target demo. I was never the one waiting in line to buy Yeezys or any of his clothes. Like, I don't care about his music like that. Like,
Yeah.
I barely know one of his albums was called The Life of Pablo. Barely know that. So I'm clearly not his target demo. It's not gonna hurt him or anyone else if I'm like, I'm not gonna buy any more of his stuff or music. I wasn't anyway. So who are we kidding? I'm not supporting him
I
whatsoever.
feel bad for people that like look up to him
Mm,
because that's just rough. It's like, damn.
yeah.
Like when someone you like a lot is starting to say this bizarre shit and it gets to a point that you can't defend them, you're like put in a really weird position. Like it's just,
Yeah. And then it saddens me to see, and maybe saddens isn't the right word. I find it disturbing when so many of these like right wing, quote unquote, or extreme or whatever you want to call it, so many of these outlets are still giving him a platform and having him come on to talk about things and interview him and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, either one, you know that he said these outlandish, crazy, like horrible things, and you are okay with that and inviting him on to explain what he meant. I don't need further explanation. I really don't need more
Yeah.
context, you know? So either you're okay with that or you know that he has a mental illness and you're exploiting that.
Exactly. It's one or the other.
You're being gross. Like, you're using him for attention. You don't care about him. You don't care about what he has to say. You don't care about, his well-being, mental or otherwise. All you care about, and you don't even care about the people that he's affecting and hurting and the harm that he's causing by what he's saying. All you care about is Ye's gonna come on my show and give me clicks and views, and he's gonna say some crazy shit that's headline grabbing, sound bites. That's all you care about, and that's disturbing to me.
Yeah,
that's really disturbing. It's
is.
gross.
Yeah, it is. It's really
So-
gross. Did you see where he got banned on Twitter again?
Yeah.
And Elon said, he basically went, I tried.
Listen, there's only so much I can do.
He said he's clearly violated our
In terms of
terms of conditions or guidelines, whatever they
Yeah.
are. And he banned him. Did you see what he got banned for?
posting a swastika, right?
It was the Star of David with the swastika in the middle of it. Y'all. What the fuck?
He's at this point, he's very clearly making the choice to do this and to pursue this line of thought and
Yeah.
vocalizing those things. Like, we talked a little bit earlier. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. We talked a little bit about how, there are ways to have conversations about, basically, quote unquote, successful dictators that have been able to rise to power.
Yeah.
And, obviously they do horrible things. We don't like dictators. The fact that I have to even make that disclaimer is stupid.
Hey, we're anti-dictator
on this podcast.
Yeah.
We'll
be sure to put that in our bio, just like we're anti-fascist and we're anti-this and we're anti-that.
So there's ways to have conversations about what makes an effective, quote unquote, or successful dictator.
Yeah.
And how are these people able to rise to power and be effective in that they are able to succeed in what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. Not saying good or bad, just saying how does it happen? Because if you don't understand that, you don't understand how to prevent it in the future.
Exactly.
There are ways to have conversations about that. But, when you just say, I love Hitler, like, I don't know what conversation you were trying to have. I'm not even trying to say that you were trying to have this conversation that I'm talking
exactly.
about. But if you were,
you missed the mark.
When he says, there are things to love about all sorts of people, and there are things you can love about anybody. And I love things about Hitler, and I'm just like, what? You could come from the point of view or perspective. You can have a conversation of what makes an effective dictator. There have been documentaries. There have been, like whole philosophical like conversations, debates, whatever about what makes an effective dictator. I mean, they're often charming, charismatic,
like serial killers.
Yeah, they're able to identify and weaknesses within groups of people and exploit and manipulate. They're very, very effective communicators. All these sorts of
They're
things,
basically
right?
just cult leaders.
They're often can be very handsome.
They're very charismatic, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so it's
But no, I mean, to act like that would be. I'm not comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. I do think that comparison is very extreme. However,
I'm not comparing.
But I'm saying it would be like when people want to say, you cannot like Donald Trump. Totally fine. I don't like Donald Trump. But I'm not going to act like he isn't charismatic in his own way. I'm not going to act like he clearly is some sort of business savvy. He knows how to effectively communicate to the audience he's targeting.
Mhm.
So to act like those qualities don't exist, I mean, they do, but that's to say
The difference,
they can still exist, and it doesn't
Yeah.
mean I like him.
being an effective leader or a good leader or able to rise to power and assume a position of leadership,
Yeah,
that has nothing to do with your own personal like beliefs and goals,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Or your kind of like a moral sense of what's right and what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that work their way into positions of power, and they across the board have a lot of things in common. Now, whether it's Mussolini, Hitler, Donald Trump, Obama, they have things in common.
Yeah.
I mean, Obama's a very good communicator. He's a very good speaker. He's handsome. He's charismatic. He's very warm.
Mhm.
That's not to say he did or didn't do horrible things when he was a president.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But the act like those qualities don't exist, but it's the affection that Kanye had.
yay,
Yay,
Kanye,
Kanye.
the artist formerly known as Kanye,
At least he didn't turn himself into a symbol like Prince. Because then I have it
suspenseful with a pencil ever since Prince turned himself into a symbol.
where Eminem stands, just so you know. Anyway, it was just the adoration he seemed to have. That was like the most disturbing part about it. It's like, what?
The fact that he could say like straight faced, even though you couldn't see his face, I guess
What
going
was
with the
he
tone of his
fucking
voice.
wearing? So embarrassing.
But it's the fact that he could, say it with a quote unquote straight face in
Yeah.
a convincing manner, in a way that he's not mocking. He's not being sarcastic or,
I mean,
deadpan,
it's not
or
apparent to me that he was.
he's not being satirical. He's not doing a parody of,
Yeah.
it's none of that.
No.
So yeah,
It's disturbing, to be
Mm.
honest. It's very disturbing, and it's like sad to just see.
and then to see the way that he's acting out now, and then you think about when he was married to Kim Kardashian and in a relationship with her, I'm just like, has he always been this way? Or is it like this is relatively new? Is this a reaction to, the divorce and all the fallout of that? Is that what sparked some of this? Or
No, I
what
think
has
that-
she had to deal with?
I feel like she reached her breaking point and she divorced him.
Yeah.
Or I don't think it's finalized yet, but No,
they just did.
they just finalized it.
This week. He has
Good
to pay
for Kim, dude.
He has to
Holy
pay
shit.
$200,000 a month in child support.
Damn.
Yes.
Kind of like.
People were making fun of, they're like, this is going to be North on her 18th birthday, like rolling up in like a Maybach.
Yeah, that's
How many?
insane.
They have 4 kids together, I think.
Yeah.
4 kids. So that's
North Saint.
$50,000 a month per kid.
Shit. Who? North Saint.
Chicago and
It's like, damn, it's the youngest.
Rain? No, that's the other one.
That's Courtney's kid.
North Saint.
North Chicago Saint and
Chicago.
is it?
Psalm.
Yeah, that's what it is. Hold on, and then Courtney's kids are
We
Rain,
name all the Kardashians.
Rain, Penelope, and Mason.
I feel like we're naming Santa's reindeer. I had a thought the other day. I was watching another.
That's dangerous.
Yes, I had a thought. Y'all, you're just gonna have to get used to me having thoughts and then feeling the need to share them. I write them down now instead of just texting you or like asking whoever's nearby. I write them down and save them. You're welcome. So I was watching some other podcast, and they were talking about something to do with like relatives, and then I was thinking about how we're doing our what are they called?
23andMe.
23andMe. We ordered the kits to do our DNA testing. So
Yeah.
look out for that. That's going to be a fun episode. So I was thinking about like family trees and stuff because they also have a segment on their website where you can delve more into like your family tree, and you can opt in to, if you share DNA with other people who have done 23andMe, they'll let you know, which I think is pretty interesting because you can find long lost relatives and stuff. But then I started to think about, you know how when you're looking at a family tree is made up of everyone that you're related to, right?
I'm thinking of Harry Potter.
And so would you say that everyone in your family tree that you put on there is a relative?
No.
Why not?
Because when they marry, that's not your blood.
But you can have relatives by marriage though. And everyone on your family tree is a relative.
I don't.
That was the question so that was the basis of the question I'm about to ask.
Okay.
Because you do put marriages and spouses and stuff on that. So after you get married, your husband or your wife, your spouse is considered your relative. Are you committing incest when you have sex with your spouse?
No, they're not your relative.
Would it technically, if you follow the logic, is it considered incest?
I don't know what logic that was followed to think no.
Why are they not your relative?
Because you're not related.
You are related.
You aren't related.
By marriage, you're related.
No, you're not.
Legally,
it's literally, that's not the same thing.
You are related.
No, you're not. You're not related. You're married.
Yes, you are.
That's not the same as being related. You're not even technically related to your step situation or your like in-laws. You're not related.
I think
you're related by marriage, basically just by a legal standpoint. You're not related by anything else. So you're not really related.
So is blood the only thing that matters when it comes to committing incest?
Yes. The truth of the matter is that like it's why people end up with like deformities or they end up really fucked up psychologically, because that's the fact that you share all these genes that fuck the people up. If you fuck your stepmom, that's not technically incest.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying you should fuck your stepmom. I'm just saying if you fuck your stepmom and you got her pregnant, that child is not a product of incest. Like you would not be able to like charge anybody with incest at that point. So.
That's just kind of like icky.
Yeah, that's just gross. That's just a porn. It's just like, don't actually do that. Ew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I'm immediately nope.
You're no fun. You don't.
Did you want me to? I'm sorry that you're obsessed with incest. You watch too much of Game of Thrones. You're too into it.
No, I don't.
You're just trying to normalize
that. Ship them because they're related. I ship them in spite of them being related.
That's a fucking lie.
No, it's not.
If they weren't related and there wasn't that forbidden factor, nobody would give as much of a fuck.
I disagree.
I think that y'all Game of Thrones people just into some incest.
No, incorrect.
Y'all are just a bunch of freaks.
No, I was very upset when I
don't know really anything about it.
In season 8, the incest plot twist that was revealed. I was upset.
Does that say a lot about George R.R. Martin?
That there's
so much incest? Like,
listen, it's just a part of that world.
Why?
But he created the world.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not like it's historical. It's like he made the world super like into incest and everyone's just kind of cool with it.
I would argue that actually incest among like royal families and stuff was very prevalent throughout human history.
Well, yeah, I mean, even in like Harry Potter, there's like incest. I think it's at least been like rumored about within like the pure bloodline.
Yeah, you like try and keep it within the quote unquote family. Maybe it's not direct incest.
Keep it in the family.
Yeah, it's not. I think that they try to not do direct because then
there's a rule. They're like, you can fuck your third cousin. That's
like in Mean Girls. But isn't he your cousin?
Yeah, but he's my first cousin, so that's not how that works, is it? No. Hey, Seth. Anyway. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. But that was supposed to take longer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was.
Oh.
Yeah, you're no fun.
Let me think about it.
I thought it could have been
So you're a product of incest
debate.
then? Because once upon a time your parents were married. So you were an incest child.
Sure.
That's the logic though.
Yes.
So Chloe, your niece, incest. So every child ever is a product of incest.
You're having sex with your relative.
No. I don't see it that way. Do you actually see it that way?
No. No, but I do think that it's interesting if you think about the dynamics of like family and family trees and stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, your spouse is supposed to be like your partner, your equal, you know, because you're right there with each other, right? So, but everyone else on your family tree, you would consider relative, like aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, you know, parents, grandparents, all the other people on your family tree, you would consider a relative, but you wouldn't consider your spouse a relative?
Well, hold on. A family tree, though, the only, like, I guess if you actually start a family tree, I don't think every spouse is on there. I think it's like if I wanted to do a family, I think I've never done a family tree, but I'm trying to sit here and like look at remembering the things that I have seen. Normally, you're just following like a family, right? So you're like,
it depends on how complex you want to get with the family
because I'm
tree.
like,
I
normally
mean,
it's like, here's the mom and the dad, and here's their 4 children. And then they had these 2 children, who then had these 4 children.
mhm.
I'm like, I don't think I actually have ever seen like a spouse
but the
on
thing
there
is, when you're
besides the
building,
parent.
if you're building a family tree, if
Yeah.
you don't already have one established and you're
Yeah.
building one, you don't start with and go down. You start at the bottom and go up. So you would start with like you.
Well,
and
yeah,
then-
I mean,
and then
maybe
you would
when you
build it.
well, yeah, when you build it, but I'm
You
saying
would
when you
build it
look at it,
backwards. But yeah, but so
because that's the point, is to follow the bloodline. The point isn't to follow all that. The point is to follow where your blood went.
But then you would include marriages too if you want to know like where the bloodline does go. Because I mean, when you think about it, you have what, 2 sets of grandparents, right?
Yeah.
Blood grandparents. And
Yeah.
then you have 4 sets of great grandparents. You have 16 sets of great great grandparents. Isn't that how that works? It just keeps doubling. Yeah. Because each person then has 2 more parents. So you have your 2 sets of grandparents. And then each of those grandparents has 2 parents. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah. Right? So 2 sets of grandparents and then 4 sets. So 8 great grandparents. And then you have 16 great great grandparents. So if you're trying to, yes, the point of family tree is to try and follow the bloodline.
I'm like,
This is the straw conversation all
Here's
over
my
again
grandma.
in the tunnel.
Then my great grandma was here. And then I would have had a great grandpa. But then my granddad would have also had a yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get it.
Yes.
I needed to visually break that down in
yes.
my head. I was like, that's shush.
Too much.
Shush.
Shut up.
Too. Be shush.
Be shush.
Be shush.
But so when you think about how many, it just keeps multiplying. It's sort of exponential the further up the tree you go. But at some point, you know, you basically can look at family trees as an inverted pyramid or a pyramid, depending on where you start, right? So if you start with you and you go back up this way, you're trying to find all your, you know, relatives that came before you, right? Because how many different people had to produce offspring, you know, thousands of years ago to then get down to you, right? So that's, I think if you're going that way, that's what you're trying to find out, right? If you're going backwards. But then you're following the bloodline in reverse. But like you said, you can also do where you pick, okay, I'm going to pick one set of
well, eventually you get to a point where you're like, you can't follow them anymore.
Exactly.
So you're like, here's like the final.
Like, it really just depends. You don't have to include every marriage on a family tree, but you can, depending on how complex you want to make it.
Yeah, because I'm like, technically, if you're just trying to follow a bloodline, it's not important who they procreated with. It's only important that you know they made said children with somebody. So I'm saying, like, the point is to just know, like, I don't need to know who my aunt married and then had 4 kids with. I just need to know she had 4 kids and what their names are. And then if they had this, that, and the other, who she actually made those children with is of no concern to me because he isn't my blood. But those children are my blood because they came from her.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So
yeah, I mean, you would, it may be easier to find records if you do have that spouse's, you know, name or whoever. But I think I would agree with that it doesn't really matter. Let me put it this way. You're not following the family trees of the people that married in.
So, yeah.
Unless you're trying to find incest.
An act has been committed.
In which case you're trying to figure out how these people are related.
You're just
somehow.
Like, ooh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the Game of Thrones analogy. Yeah. With the House of the Dragon, you can see where people have drawn like the Targaryen family tree from like that specific time in that era and how it gets back down. And it still confuses me how Rhaenyra, who is the kind of one of the central characters in House of the Dragon, she's a direct or indirect, I don't know. She's an ancestor of Daenerys Targaryen, who's in the regular Game of Thrones series. And so I still am confused as to how they're related because that family tree is all sorts of
I'm assuming it overlaps a lot.
A lot. It's like, wait, so this person is your father and also your uncle and also your brother. It's a lot.
Ooh, ew,
yeah.
Ew. That's nasty.
It's a lot. Moving on from incest.
Moving on.
So the other thing that I had thought of, and I left it pretty vague when I mentioned it to you earlier, is the philosophy of acting.
Yeah, I saw that and I was immediately just intimidated because I was like, don't
Like,
ask.
what is that conversation going to be?
I was like, I don't know.
So when we we're on our way to go play paintball the other weekend.
Mm-hmm.
We started to get into sort of a conversation about just acting and how it sort of works and like method acting and
Mm-hmm.
emoting and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I had the thought, and I was wondering, when it comes to acting, my understanding of looking at acting as an art form
Mm-hmm.
is it's supposed to be the portrayal of like human life or human emotion, right? Would that be fair to say more or less?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, basically, though, I mean, you're just portraying something
That
like human experience, I guess.
mhm,
Yeah.
a portray and we're not even going to get into the minutia of like, well, what if you're portraying a character that's like a
What if
being that doesn't actually exist in real life? It's like, shut the fuck up.
it's just exactly like this?
No. But so I was thinking about how acting as an art form is supposed to be a portrayal of human life. You know, you're embodying a character and you're trying to say things and react to things in a way that you think this character would in real life based on their own sort of background and the background you give the character and the way that they grew up and informed by all these things that would have made them into like an actual person.
Yeah, I mean, also, it really depends on like the genre you're going for. I mean, unless I guess I would have to, if I think of it too hard, I'd have to disagree a bit because I think that acting sometimes you're overacting to make for satirical purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes, I mean, acting in a sense is just a form of storytelling to portray whatever story is needing to be told. So it might not necessarily be so true to like human emotion or whatever. It might be an over exaggeration. It might be an under exaggeration to try to like prove a point or like be satirical or even political or
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want. So I mean, yes and no. I guess I would just boil it down in simpler terms if it's just a form of storytelling in general. Because I mean, even bringing up the whole, well, sometimes some characters aren't human. Yeah, that's very true. So I guess like you're just portraying, you're just being. It's just a form of storytelling. I guess. I guess that's what I would
Boil it
kind
down
of
to.
yeah boil it down to.
So then when I think about that, basing it off the premise of, you're a form of storytelling
Mhm.
where, depending on the character, you're emoting, right?
Yeah.
You're reacting to situations in a way that this character does and is called for in the story to tell
Mhm.
the story, right? And so then I was thinking about that. And then I was watching a podcast where they were talking to this MMA fighter who was in the newest Black Panther movie.
Mhm.
And he talked about, he said he had like a small role in it. But that one of the days on set they were all really long days on set. But one of them was, he said they shot a scene like 40 times. And so there are the two of the actresses. I want to say that it was Angela Bassett and I think it was Denai Guerrera. It was either her or Lupita Nyong'o. But there were two, for sure Angela Bassett was there, but it was the two actresses. He said they shot the scene maybe like 40 different times,
Mhm.
From different angles and different lighting setups and all this stuff, right? And to get everything they needed, to get all the coverage they needed. But he said that every single time, even though they did it 40 different times, they brought the same intensity, the same emotion, like to the scene every single time they did it. And so that got me thinking when I heard him say that about acting is acting a portrayal of human emotion, or is it an embodiment of human emotion? And by that I mean, if you're sitting there and say you have to do an emotional scene, where you're having to be heartbroken over something,
Mhm.
are you developing a skill set so that you can fix your face in a certain way, so you can make your voice crack or tremble, or the tone of your voice changes in a certain way, your body moves and behaves in a certain way to then portray that heartbreak? Are you being that technical? And some of it obviously you're not thinking about because you've
Mhm.
trained so much, you just can snap in and out of it, right?
Yeah.
So is it you're just portraying the emotion, or is it how I've been led to believe with like method acting, are you actually as a human being taking on that emotion and feeling it? as if you would in real life.
I think the best actors embody it. I think that a lot of people pull from their real life experiences, or they'll consume a lot of media to where they can then feel an emotion secondhand or talk to people so they can start to develop what that could feel like and then try to apply that to actually feeling it. I mean, that's probably a mixture of both, but I think that some of the best actors know how to embody an emotion rather than portray it, because the dangerous part sometimes about like portraying is we think we know. One thing that it's always stuck with me because I've agreed with it so much was there's a TV show called Lie to Me, and it only had like 2 or 3 seasons or so, and I loved it. And I remember, and I'm not going to get into what the show's about, but basically he just was an expert in lying, and he could see if you were lying.
He could pick up on tells and facial expressions, body movements, language.
There was something he said that, and I've always like remembered it because I've seen so many of my students do this, and I've been guilty of doing it as well.
For those who don't know.
For those that don't know, I teach acting classes, and I want to be an actor / director / filmmaker / pretty much anything. But there was a scene where he had to deal with someone who was angry, and the person had their fit and then walked away, and he was like, "Yeah, they're lying." They're like, "Well, look, she was so angry," and he's like, "That's not how anger works. Anger is actually a slow build up. It builds. Anger does not just explode like that normally. No, anger is you listen, it slowly builds, and you might be defensive, you might be this, but it's an emotion that you don't just pop off. It's not genuine." And I've always remembered that because if I were to tell you to be angry, you'd probably just yell at me. If I were to tell you to be sad, you might think I need to cry. And, most people, they put emotions in these boxes of what they think they look like, when if you look at the real life, like whenever you've been sad, I rarely cry when I'm sad. And I rarely yell when I'm mad. And I think that a lot of it is just remembering how you even got to that place. What do you actually do before X, Y, and Z would even happen? So I think that's why embodying the emotion is always going to be the safer option, because then you're going to go with the motions rather than just be like, this is what this looks like and I'm going to do this. And you can clearly tell top tier actors from, who feel it, those who might not be feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people are talented enough to where, they might not need to feel shit, and they just are that talented to be able to just go, this is what this looks like, and they're great at it. But yeah, I think that acting is more of an embodiment. Personally, that's just kind of how I think of it a lot. And I think that if you're going to be a good actor, you need to be very in tune with your emotions, which is really difficult considering we've been told from a young age to not be.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be very, very hard to access what those emotions need to even feel like for yourself.
Yeah, because you're told to suppress your emotions for the comfort of other people.
Yeah.
When you're a child, it's at least we grew up as children are to be seen and not heard, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying our parents were evil for that. It's just, you're taught that, if you're uncomfortable, suck it up and deal with it. We don't need crybaby bedwetters around here. Like life isn't comfortable. Get used to it. It's suppress the emotion for the comfort of others, because I don't want to be inconvenienced or disturbed or whatever by what you're feeling, because it's not a real problem.
Or you're just told in a way like, you don't want to make the people around you uncomfortable, so don't feel this and don't feel that, or don't act this way. So it becomes one of those things. Even if you do feel it, like you think of something else so you don't start to cry or whatever. Yeah. So it can be really difficult to learn how to even access that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that in itself is like a huge process of being like, how do you even get there?
Yeah. So then, this is a multi-layered conversation or question. So then, thinking through that thought process, I then come to the question is, if when we're having people act, if we're having them, and obviously not every scene is like a dramatic, sort of like intense, emotional, sad, trauma, crying, angry, whatever.
Yeah.
Not every scene is that, obviously. But if we are asking actors and having them, say it is a very emotional scene where you're heartbroken over, the loss of a loved one, is it then like immoral or unethical to have actors go to that place again and again and again and again and keep re-experiencing that intense emotion.
I don't think so. I think it's therapeutic. I think especially I think that in a way it's therapeutic to be able to release it in a place that you're supposed to release it in and like you're expected to release that in. And it can be like at least something good's going to come from this pain or something good is going to come from this ugly feeling I have. At least I can release it in a creative way that other people can then enjoy and then not just be this ugly thing I hold inside of me that nobody else knows about.
Mhm.
And so I mean, at the end of the day, if they didn't want to do it, they don't have to. So I don't feel like bad. I don't
Mhm.
feel like it's immoral because it's not like I hold a gun up to their head and I'm really upset right now, Leonardo DiCaprio, you bitch, you know.
Or like I
He's
guess if you think about like and obviously actors they can choose what projects to
yeah,
do. Now there's a lot of factors that affect that and we're
yeah,
not going to go into all that.
yeah,
But if an actress is in a movie where she has to be like terrified and she, in a scary movie, she's going to get chased and hunted down by some psycho killer or tortured, murdered, whatever.
mm-hmm.
If you're requiring her to go to that place over and over and over again, like,
That was stressful.
and then
Yeah,
repeated exposure to stressful events, we know is trauma. It causes trauma. Now, there's different degrees of trauma. There's
yeah,
different degrees to which it affects you and stuff like that. But again, that's would just be another sort of layer to the like, eh, is it ethical? Is it moral to have actors and to not even just saying like, yes, I do agree with you that once they accept a role, that's their job. They know what they're getting into.
yeah.
But is it even ethical to begin with for filmmakers to want to make these sorts of projects or movies or whatever that is, yes, it's storytelling. Yes, some of these stories need to be told, but you're still requiring a human being, a real life human being to,
Some people like it
go
though.
into that
You know,
place.
some people want to push themselves that hard and they enjoy it,
Mhm.
especially fans of horror. They love it. So in a way it's like I think that a lot of actors get a lot of I know that if I were to do a project and it might have been the most emotionally like taxing job ever, whether I had to be scared the whole time or sad or whatever the emotion is that just really took a toll on my mental health. When it was all over with, if I could look at that and see how great it turned out and then see people react to it and see that they're scared like I was scared or they're sad or if I can see a clear indication that I affected other people in the way that everybody wanted to that was a part of the production, it's worth it. At least it would be to me because I think it's very powerful. And I think that entertainment, especially with filmmaking, it's an escape and it helps so many people in their daily lives, whether they even realize it or not, that it is an important job because it's like an escape from reality. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that I think the pros and cons balance themselves. So, I mean, there's a reason Emma Roberts has worked with, what's that guy's name?
Murphy.
Ryan Murphy. I mean, and he's made all that. I mean, and she keeps going back because
Mhm.
you like to be able to create something powerful with somebody. No matter how taxing it might be onto you, I guess the lows are lows and the highs are highs, and that's why that business in general is kind of like it is just stressful, but there's something fun about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess and two, it comes back to, it is an art. It is
Yeah.
an art form. It is an expression. I mean, I view all forms of art as, like you said, it's a method of storytelling.
Yeah.
Whether the art is, pottery and clay,
Yeah.
whether it's music, whether
Hmm.
it's, painting or creating, writing, singing, acting, directing, all of that is an art form.
Yeah.
And it's a method of storytelling. You're trying to convey some sort of meaning, message, emotion in a way that people are going to, whether consciously or subconsciously, pick up on
Yeah.
and relate to or not relate to.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it was always so important too. I mean, boiling it back down to like there was a lot of movies in the 90s and early 2000s, they still come out now about like bullying, right? And so, you kind of had a lot of people look the other way. Not saying that still doesn't happen because it does, but then as soon as you're kind of given a perspective of something that you never lived through, but you can see somebody else live through that, you have more empathy for them now. You have more empathy for people when you're forced to watch their story, even if you don't know somebody like that. Or then finally, or maybe you'll start to see other people that way because of this story. So, I mean, and not everything is that deep, but I mean, that's why like certain films and or plays or whatever and works of art, they are important because they give people the ability to see a perspective they might not ever normally be able to see and make them go, oh, okay, that's why they're like, they might think like this or they have this opinion. Like I can understand that. It helps people with empathy.
It
Or
helps
when they would otherwise
yeah.
wouldn't be able to like if you're in South Georgia and you watch Straight Outta Compton, you're able to like look at a situation through the lens that you would never in a million years be able to live through yourself. But you can walk away with an experience, with seeing their experience and learning from it and growing from it and it making you a more like, I guess, a bigger person or like a more emotionally intelligent person.
What's the word when you are exposed to different things? There's a word.
I don't know. I'm not good with words.
It's like when you it's the concept of like, you have to leave your small town, your hometown that you were born in to experience the world because you become more just knowledgeable about the world.
You're cultured.
There's a word for it. I don't fucking know what the word is. It escapes me, but I mean, it comes that whole thing comes back to, again, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I was listening to another podcast where they were talking about the power of storytelling and how there's a reason that like the Bible, like it's not just like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. There's a reason it's not just the 10 Commandments, that everything is told in the form of a story. It's thou shalt not kill. Here's a story showing why you shouldn't, or why it's wrong to honor thy father and thy mother. There's stories and parables and all that stuff because it's not enough to just tell somebody something. People, forget what you do. They forget what you say. They don't forget how you make them feel. Yeah. Right. They'll always remember how they felt. And so stories and storytelling has that effect. Is like if somebody tells you like, hey, don't kill people. Okay, whatever. But if someone says, here's a story about somebody that committed murder and these horrible things that they felt after they did it, or, what happened to them after the fact and like all these repercussions, blah, blah, blah. So then not only, again, are you making people, are stories a way of helping people to sort of access emotions or experiences they wouldn't otherwise have had, it's also a way of like showing them via story how to put certain principles and morals and ethics or whatever into practice. It's like not just telling you here's how you live life. It's showing you how to live life sort of thing, I guess. But they were talking about that a lot more in depth in the podcast. And so that just got me thinking about, storytelling and acting and that sort of thing. So
it's definitely like, I don't know, fun, stressful. Every aspect of it is. I mean, it's interesting now to have like kind of done on camera, behind the camera, and they're just they're each of their own ways of stressful. But
they're both super stressful and I don't even know why I do it until...
And the writing, all of it, honestly. You think you're like, I love this. Then you go to do it and you go, I hate it. Could throw up. This is all horrible. But it's so much fun.
Well, I guess we'll wrap it up here. We'll end the episode here.
Oh, I had something that I wanted to say because you had just said, and I'll say it quick. When you were talking about how, people remember how you made them feel. I think that's why I feel bad for certain people. Like I would say the people that I grew up listening to Ye, because, they remember how he made them feel in certain times of their lives. And it can be really difficult to have that emotional connection with somebody. And then all of a sudden you're just like, why are you saying all these horrible things? This is like the exact opposite of how you made me feel before. Why are you doing this? And that's why you have these people that are like, how could you defend him? Well, they're really defending how they used to feel about him than they are now. So it made me think about that again. Cause I was like, yeah, that's like why you have these stands basically. So yeah, guess that's about it, y'all.
Yeah. We'll end it here.
End it.
Thanks for listening. You can hit subscribe, hit the bell, turn on notifications.
You can, and you should.
So that you don't miss an episode.
Because if you don't, that means you're ugly, dumb, and stupid.
And/or.
No.
And
all of them.
Just all of it. Follow us on all of the social media platforms at Waypod, WAYYPOD.
Yes, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Say goodbye
Oh,
to
that
that
one.
camera.
Peace out.
Bye. I just did a weird hand thing.
You did your wave, the queen wave. Goodbye.
What's up? Bye.
Goodbye.